as we continue on the march towards the enforcement of the people's will in the constitutional force majeure that targets the 1999 Constitution for termination and the transition that will undertake the referendums to decide for the owners of these confiscated sovereignties where next they go. It's become necessary to clarify some of the issues once more. There was a previous broadcast in which we were making, providing definitions to restructuring, to self-determination, to referendum, and all of how they relate. But on this occasion, we are just going to speak about the Constitution as a union agreement. If we understand the Constitution to be union agreement, we will then understand the Constitution to be the union. That is, when people say, oh, Constitution of Nigeria, if you replace in that sentence the Union of Agreement of Nigeria, Union Agreement of Nigeria, you will then understand that Constitution is that Nigeria. For people to willingly bring their land and their people into a union. That is what is encapsulated in Constitution. And that is why the preamble to the Constitution begins with the phrase, we the people of Nigeria, having solemnly and firmly resolved to live together as one indivisible and indissoluble union, Nigeria, do hereby give unto ourselves the following Constitution. That is to say, the Ijaw, the Ogoni, the Anang, the Efik, the Tiv, the Yoruba, and everybody in between, including the Fulani. The claim there is that they had sat down, considered all the other options, but decided to pull together as a one political union. And therefore, writing down the terms of their agreement in what is now presented as Constitution, like the memo and articles of a company. Now, what is the problem with the Constitution of Nigeria? Because these past few days, as the debates rage louder, all the TV stations are inundated with the same questions, and all kinds of guests, including people you thought should know, lawyers, senior advocates, professors, they go out there and just, ignorantly make postulations, and some of them mischievously too. What is an issue? Why is it that this Constitution has become something that is a recurring decimal in the place of debate and dispute, especially with the union dispute declared in 2020 by the indigenous nationalities, rejecting that Constitution as basis and insisting on the termination of his life? If we want to understand it, because if you don't understand the nature of the problem, you will never be able to solve it. You will be looking everywhere else, and the problem will be growing until it consumes you. We can take our bearing from even the document itself in section 14.2a, and this is particularly targeted at lawyers in the land. Anybody who knows any lawyer should confront that lawyer with what I'm about to say concerning that Constitution, so that we can know the urgency of the situation we are caught in and what we should do, what we could do. Every other thing is ignorance or dishonesty. Section 14.2a of the Nigerian Constitution, as disputed and as bad as it is, admitted that sovereignty, I'm quoting now, sovereignty belongs to the people, from whom government, through this Constitution, derives all its powers and authority. I repeat, sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government, through this Constitution, derives all its powers and authority. That is the universal truism on account of the locus of our sovereignty. That sovereignty belongs to the Yoruba, the Ijaw, the Igbo, the Idoma, the Tiv, the Fulani. If there's anyone here, sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom the government, through this Constitution, derives all its powers and authority. It is only, that means only when these people, in exercise of their sovereignty, create an agreement among themselves to unionize and document that agreement, can you have a source of power and authority over the union by an entity you now call the government. having accepted this universal basis, Nigeria goes ahead in the preamble to its constitution to lie that we the people, having solemnly and firmly resolved to live in unity as one indivisible country, do hereby make and give unto ourselves the following constitution. That preamble, holds two big claims, false claims. The first claim is that the Ijaw, the Anang, the Efik, the Igbo, the Yoruba, the Tiv, the Beram have met in a meeting and solemnly resolved to submit their lands and their people into the union to be called Nigeria. That is the first claim. The second false claim is that we do hereby make and give unto ourselves the following constitution, meaning that we now document that agreement in a form that to regulate the affairs, our affairs in that union. That's the articles of the union. The first part cannot be resolved by any other means than going back to the truth, because we call it false claim because in the same constitution you come to the decree number 24 of 1999, which is printed, even if in error, as a part of that constitution. You go and see in that decree number 24 of 1999 how Absalam Abubakar narrated the story of how he came about the constitution. He said he formed a committee called Constitution Debate Coordinating Committee that went out to ask people, how do you want to? The people that they are asking are not the ones that are supposed to be discussing. It is the sovereignty of the Yoruba that has to be submitted. It is the sovereignty of the Ijaw that has to be submitted. And therefore, according to that section 14.2a, any meeting that is not the sovereign components of Nigeria that are deciding on how to federate among themselves, if you form a committee that then begins to go from hotel to hotel, inviting whoever they choose to invite, to say that you are holding a discussion, you are wasting your time. It is that kind of hotel and beer parlor kind of gathering that the committee set up by, I think it's Nikki Toby that headed it, came back to say, most of the people we met in those hotels say they want to return to 1979 constitution. And then Absalam Abubakar and his Supreme and Armed Forces Ruling Council, in the same constitution written in that decree, said that they looked at the report, they removed what they deemed bad and added what they thought was good and promulgated the balance into the document to be called the 1999 Constitution. So they told the story of how the 1999 Constitution emerged in the same document. And when you juxtapose that story with the claim in the preamble that we the people have done according to the prescription of section 14.2a, you will see in clear terms what we are rejecting, that it is a lie. The proof of the false claims we are alleging is in that decree number 24. Incontrovertible proof. And I'm not saying it from the sidelines. I'm saying it as a lawyer who had the privilege of filing in the Federal High Court of Nigeria, both in Abuja and Lagos divisions, on behalf of identifiable plaintiffs, Chief Nohoro, Professor Wole Soyinka, Ojukwu, CC Ono, Bankole Oki, the senior advocate, and a whole number of other people, including Asari Dokuba and Wazurike, in 2007, at the time we finished the meeting, the Pronaco, by which we all now reached a new consensus that we should go back to being a federation from the collapse of our federation in 1966. And so the issue now is, what is this thing that is wrong with this constitution and how can it be rectified? It is in going to section 14.2a, going to the preamble and going to decree number 24, all in that document, that you will see exactly what is wrong and what needs to be fixed. We have not met, we have not agreed to submit our sovereignties, and we are being corralled by the falsehood, by that forgery of 1999. That is why people are describing Nigeria as a fraud. That is why those who now say they can't contend with that fraud any further are insisting that the fraud must be terminated. That's why they say we must go to transition, so that we can work out our relationships by first going into a meeting. And it is against this backdrop that we will better understand the 5 points of demand in the proclamation of December 16, 2020 by the Indigenous Nationalities Alliance, in which they listed in number 4 and 5 of those demands exactly what needs to be done. Let nobody, it is a two-stage process. If we're a federation, then the resolution of this will cease to be a federation. Our federation collapsed at the point the 5 constitutions that defined our union, according to this universal truism. We remember, that going towards independence in 1960, that the units that will federate first made out their constitutions. And so it was these 3 constitutions of Western region, Eastern region, and Northern region that went into the meeting in Lancaster House that became basis of agreeing to federate in 1960. They were therefore the ones donating the powers that were credited to the center for what the center, that's the federal government, will be doing for them. So the federal government in the federation was a union office. All the things they have to do were the decisions of the regions to take. You couldn't bring anything to the federal parliament if the regions had not approved of it. And so by the time in 1966 that the coup happened and the constitutions that defined that federation of Nigeria were toppled and progressively overtaken by decrees. Of course, 1963 came with a Midwestern region, emanated from by due process of referendum from Western region in 1963. So the 5 constitutions then, defined the union as at 1966 when the accident of coup happened. The constitution of Western region, Eastern region, Northern region, and Midwestern region, and then the federal constitution distilled by these 4 persons that are forming a company. And then they write their memo and article for how they will relate. So they are the ones dictating what that entity will do. They are the owners of the entity. And so we've come now to the point where the constituents of Nigeria, those who are saying, what are these ethnic nationalities talking about? The Federation of Nigeria is a federation of the constituent ethnic components. The British corralled them and into a union in 1914 without any discussion. The little discussion that happened all the way to 1960 in Lancaster House got overtaken in 1966, and decree after decree by which those 4 regions of the time got fractured into 36 states, and all of the things that became exclusive lists in which that federal government, that union office now became the owner of everybody and the enterprise. That's what we are living with. The rogue federal government that emerged from 1966, from after the July collapse of the federation, and the failure to refloat in Aburi, January 67. All of what had happened had been that an illicit federal government emerged, holding on to the carcass of that defunct Federation of Nigeria and doing business under it. We've now seen progressively that it is the Fulani that have been wearing the garment of that federal government, because they've manifested themselves fully now in taking over the 3 arms of government and all the arms in the land, imposing a constitution in 1979. For those who think that 1979 constitution was better in terms of how it emerged, yes, there was a Constituent Assembly in 1977. But if you research, you will see, like I saw, that Constituent Assembly did not have the final say on what became constitution. They finished their business of deciding deliberating on the draft that was given to them from the Murtala government of the time. Of course, Obasanjo coming in 76 to continue the business of making constitution for us. They had a draft, crafted between Rotimi Williams and Ben Wabweze, which went before that Constituent Assembly as their working document. The Constituent Assembly rejected all kinds of things, including the states that were created in brigandage from 1967 by Gowon and Murtala Mohammed that came after him. The Constituent Assembly did not accept the presidential system because it will accumulate power like we have seen. And so, after doing all their work, the clean copy of their product was submitted to the Supreme Military Council of Obasanjo, who then came out on the 24th of September in 1978. Let the young ones ask the older ones whether this thing did not happen. This is part of why they banned the teaching of history. The Obasanjo Supreme Military Council announced 17 amendments to the finished work of the Constituent Assembly, 24th September 1978. And it was in those amendments that were announced that everything went back to what the caliphate wanted, what the caliphate dictated through the draft that went to Constituent Assembly. And so what came out as 1979 Constitution was basically the will of the caliphate as delivered through their agent called Olusegun Obasanjo. That's how we came about the 79 Constitution that was now adopted again by Supreme Military Council of Unfortunate Ruling Council of Absalom Abaka. And so the whole thing had been a scam. And in the two, both the one of 79 and the one of 99, the false claim is put there that we the people enacted our damnation. That is what is at issue. Anybody who does not want to understand it that way and who is saying we have constitution, let's go and amend, is wasting his time, because the owners of the sovereignty are not going to wait for all of that. The National Assembly is committing treason against all of us in holding on to that constitution as basis of authority and power and as basis of union. The owners of the sovereignties that you call the Union of Nigeria are now out on the street saying we never met, we never agreed, we never made any constitution. They've been waiting for 22 years. It's now taking an American attorney called Bruce Wayne to come to tell us that is absurd that that constitution will still be hanging out 22 years after the fraud began. Those in the National Assembly who are hanging onto that constitution, hanging onto our sovereignty, because that's what they're doing in telling us that they want to amend all of whatever we want to amend. How are they going to amend 36 states? How are they going to amend 7 and 4 local government areas? How are they going to amend 68 items of exclusive list? And in what capacity would they be doing that when the same constitution they are sitting on says that it is the owners in section 14(2)(a) that it is the owners of the sovereignty that will have to decide all those questions. They are hanging on to that because they have guns attached to them by people who they are working for the benefits they make for themselves. This is the time to listen. This is the time to listen. If they are refusing to listen now, the owners of the sovereignty have come to where they can't take it anymore, because they are being killed on account of that constitution. They are being impoverished and rendered, their lives rendered unlivable on account of that constitution. So those who are hanging on the side of that constitution and planning to go to another election on it in the National Assembly, saying that the ones who are about to amend for us should know that they are dealing with a question of life and death for all of those who are being killed under the influence of that constitution, under the direction of that constitution. I think we need to dress back from whatever we were thinking before. It could be ignorance, it could be dishonesty, but whatever it is, let us dress back, understand what is going on, and accept the transition that could enable us provide a framework for us to solve this problem without going to Somalia. Thank you.